Alright, so the last time we left off, we went to our master control, and we set up the controls for our lights and for our access panel. So now what we're going to do is set up the controls for the digits being pressed. And this doesn't matter where this M is located. I'm just bringing it closer just so I can keep everything kind of where I'm using it. Okay, and eventually I'll separate those things. Because I'm kind of zoomed in and focusing here, I want to put all that stuff right there. All right, so I have digits pressed right here. Remember, it goes from 0 to 60, so I'm going to set that up. And we're going to use set driven for this. So I'm going to go to the animate menu, set driven key, set. There we go. This is my driver, so I'm going to load it as my driver. And my combination is going to be 2, 4, 8, 6, 7, 3. Okay, 6 digits. 2, 4, 6, 8, 7, 3. So I'm going to load all 6 of those into my driven. 2, 4, 8, 6, 7, 3. 2, 4, 8, 6, 7, 3. Okay, good. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to grab all of these, and the attribute that I'm going to be controlling them with is going to be the Z direction. So that's what I'm going to be using as my controlling object. So I make sure that digits pressed up here is selected. Make sure these are selected and on Z. My master control is set to 0. My keypad are in the spot I want them to be, which they are. So I'm going to go to digits pressed, make sure that's clicked, make sure these are highlighted, make sure this is highlighted, and set a key. Then I'm going to go up to my master controller, set my digits pressed to 10. Oops, not to 10. To, think, Sean, think. I'm going to set it to, let's say, 6. Let's say 7. Okay, we'll set it to 7. Okay, or we'll just do it evenly. We'll just do this evenly. 5. I complicate things sometimes trying to overthink them, but we'll just set it to 5. That'll work. Okay. And then what I'm going to do is grab my second key and push it in. And then come over here, make sure that this is still clicked, digits pressed. These are all still clicked, translate Z, and set a key. Then I'm going to go back to my master controller, set this to 10, and pull this back out. Okay, so I just reset that to 0 and set a key. Okay, so then I'm going to go back to my master control, go to 15, go to 4, push it in. It doesn't matter how far I push it in. I could actually, copy 0.027 if I wanted to. This is where I want it. Master control, digits pressed. All these are selected. Translate Z, set a key. Back to the master control. Back to 20. Zero that out. Set another key. Back to the master control. 25. Go to number 8. Push it in. Set a key. Back to the master control at 30. Zero this out. Set another key. Back to the master control. You always have to grab that master control first and change its value. Then go into your number and change its value. Set a key. Back to the master control. Change its value. Grab your number. Change its value. Set a key. 2, 4, 8, 6, and then 7 and 3. Okay, good. We'll go to 45. Push it in. Set a key. Go to 50. Reset that. Set a key. Go to 55. Push that in. Set a key. Go to 60. Haha, perfect. Set a key. Okay. Now you may have noticed that I set a bunch of keys for all of these basically in this starting position. I could have just gone here and set this to 0 and keyed it, 10 and keyed it, 20 and keyed it, 30 and keyed it, 40 and keyed it. But for beginners, sometimes that can be a little bit tricky to understand all that stuff. All right, so 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, whatever. Okay, so now when I come to digits pressed and I middle click, you'll see how each one of these buttons are now getting pushed down in the order that I specified. Okay, awesome. So that's only part of it. Remember, we also have this display. We also want to update the display. So I'm going to go into my Hypershade, go into Textures, and somewhere in this mess, probably file 10, break this out. Keybox, input, screen, that's the one. So I'm going to click on file 10 here, close that, and come over here to my load driven and load that as my driven. And you'll see in here it says frame extension. That's what we're going to be controlling. So if I come over here to frame extension, it's set to 6. If I set it to 1, I should go to 1. I set it to 2. What? For some reason my texture isn't showing up. Sometimes this thing does this where it puts an expression on here, which it shouldn't, but it did it. Okay, so if it does it, it's on purple. I right click and I delete the expression, and then I can specify in here whether I want this to go to frame 4 or 1 or whatever. And this should be updating, possibly because I'm not in viewport 2.0, it's not updating. There it is. Okay, so now it's going to update. Okay, so at 1, there's nothing showing, and then at 6, there's 5 showing, and then at 7, there's 6 showing. Okay, so that's what we're going to do, is just animate this thing turning on. Now if I go 1.1, there's no 1.1. Okay, so I don't really need to create any special transitions for this. I can just literally just key those things in there. So frame extension, digits pressed. Okay, at 0, we're here. So I'm going to set a key. Okay, master control, digits pressed, file 10, frame extension, set a key. I'm going to change my digits pressed to 5 when the 2 gets pushed, and then I change my frame extension to 2 and set a key. And then I'm going to go back here and set my master control to 15. That's when the next button gets pushed in. Set my frame extension to 3. Go to my master control. Set this to 25. Set this to 4. Set a key. Go to 26, 35. Go to my file 10. Set that to 5. Set a key. Set this to 45. Go back to my file. Set this to 6. Set a key. Repetition is going to be our best friend when we're learning rigging because there's lots of it. Set that to 7, set a key. So now, if I go to my master control and I click on the digits pressed and reset this to 0, and I click on the word, I come out into my viewport and I middle click and drag. The 2 gets pushed in, boop, and then the 7, or the 4 gets pushed in. Okay, now it's actually jumping ahead. It's actually going too quick for what I want that to happen. So I'm going to go to file 10 here, and I'm going to go into the graph editor and frame this. And you'll see what's happening is that it's just kind of jumping to that next value. So what I want to do is grab the graph, and I'm going to set these to stepped. And what that means is it's not going to change until it actually gets to that point. So now if I come back to master control, go to digits pressed, and click and drag in here with the middle mouse, only when the button is fully pressed is that thing going to pop on. That's what I want. Perfect. Okay, and then I could, if I really, really wanted to, animate something, happening after that, but we don't need to. Okay, so that's digits pressed. You can see how quick and easy that kind of animation is. If we want to animate this a second time, just for giggles, I could animate it at 60 at this point, and then just jump back to 0, and then reanimate that. If I go backwards, then our stuff animates backwards. Okay, so we would actually jump if we wanted that to start again. Okay, so that's going to cause our door mechanics to start working. Okay, we're going to get into these little lights coming down afterwards. But first thing we're going to do is just set up all this mechanical stuff. So I'm going to turn off my door mechanics. Oops, not turn off my door mechanics. I'm going to turn everything else off except my door mechanics. There we go. Okay, so now I have this. I'm going to turn viewport 2.0 off. I'll just go back to the default. And what I want to do is I want to set this whole thing up so that it works correctly. Now I can use set driven for this, but it's not really going to help me out too much because I don't know how far I want everything to spin. So I'm going to use a different utility. I'm going to go to the hypershade, and I'm going to do some rigging in the hypershade. And that's going to sound odd, but I'm going to. Okay, this is gear 3, 2, 4, 1. 3 and 2 we'll do first. So I'm going to graph out gear 3 and 2. And in here they have gear 2's translate information, gear 3's translate information. And what I can do is go to utilities. And inside utilities there's a bunch of stuff in here that I can use. There's one called multiply divide. And I can't see it right off the bat, so I'm just going to find it. There it is. And what I can do with this is I'm going to take gear 3, which is our big one here, and that's going to be my controlling object. Okay, so I'm going to open up multiply divide by double clicking it. And I'm going to middle drag gear 3 onto input 1. And it's going to say, what do you want to connect into that input 1? So I'm going to say I want to connect my rotate into input 1. Okay, now I'm really only interested in one of these rotates. If I click on here and middle drag or click and drag on this blue bar, that's the rotate Z. That's the only one I'm interested in. So on my multiply divide, I really only need to focus on this area. Okay. So what this is going to do is take whatever rotation this guy has, and I'm going to apply it to this one. Okay. So I'm going to take my multiply divide and drag it onto gear 2 with the middle mouse. And then connect this to the rotate. Okay, so now, just for fun, if I were just to grab this and start rotating it, you'll see that they're going to rotate in the same exact direction. I don't want them to go in the same direction. They should go in opposite directions. So if I go to my multiply divide, and I set this input 2 to a -1, and then I rotate, you'll see how they're rotating in the opposite directions. Now, because this is a bigger gear, it's going to rotate less than this guy would. So if this goes around once, this one might go around twice or even 3 times. So I'm going to go to my multiply divide, and instead of this being -1, I'm going to make it -2. I'm going to see what happens. And you'll see that that lines up perfect. Now this is the advantage of doing something like this, is I could animate this thing for 1,000,000 years, and it would still line up perfectly. Okay. When I modeled this, I actually made sure that this thing was twice the size of that one. That way it all worked out perfectly. Okay. So now this thing is rigged. That thing is basically, this is a very quick way to rig something so that it works together. So I need to do the same thing here to here. Okay. Now with this, I don't need to create a new multiply divide node. This rotation that's happening on here, or on here, sorry, should be basically going the opposite direction of this. This one should move the same as that one because they're the same size. So I will need to create one new multiply divide because this one's going backwards. So I'm going to duplicate this multiply divide. There's multiply divide 2. And I'm going to rename these just so I don't get confused. Big gear to little gear, MD for multiply divide. Okay. And this one is going to be little gear to little gear, multiply divide. So I'm going to grab these two, shift click my multiply divide, and graph all this stuff out. Okay, now it's going to get confusing because I have several things happening inside here. Gear 2 right here, that's that one, is going to be connected into the little gear. So middle drag gear 2 onto little gear input 1. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to say the rotate is going to go into input 1. Now the output for this is going to go into gear 4's rotate. And now if I grab this guy, let's scoot that aside, and I rotate him, you'll see that he's rotating like this and doing that. Okay, so this is where we have to get a little bit fancy with how we're setting this up. So I'm going to go back here and click on my multiply divides. I'm going to graph them out again. Okay, just so I see how they're connected. And I'm going to take this one and delete. Come on. Doesn't want to delete that connection. It's odd. Okay, whatever. All right, if I just go to gear 3, oh, that's why, because this is going into it. Wrong one. Gear 4. Still doesn't want to delete it. All right, I'll go to gear 4 here, just grab these and break the connection. So what I need to do is figure out, this one is rotating in the Z direction like this. This guy is going to be rotating in the X direction. So what I'm going to do is middle drag this onto here and say other. And what I'm going to do is go to input or output Z, because that's the Z rotation. And I'm going to connect it to, find it, rotate X. So output Z to rotate X. So now if I click on here and rotate, you'll see how these things are rotating perfectly together. Now it looks like it might be a little bit off, so let's go to the multiply divide. Oops. And instead of this being -2, we'll make it -1. Because we copied it, it's going to be a little bit off. So now, there we go. Now that's going to match up perfectly again. Okay. And then for this one, I was thinking we wouldn't have to do another one, which we really don't, but I just don't want it to get too confusing. So I'm actually going to build another one, or duplicate this another way. Duplicate this multiply divide again, gear 4, multiply divide, and gear 1, graph them out. And then I'm just going to connect gear 4, which is that guy, into our multiply divide and say input 1. This is going to be the same thing, the rotate into input 1. And then the output of this is going to go into the rotate of gear 1. Okay, so now let's check this out. Okay, now it's going backwards, which we don't want it to happen. So I'm going to go to the multiply divide and specify this is +1. That should have been a negative. Oh, oops. It's in the X direction, not the Z direction. So I have to make sure I negative the X, not the Z. All right, so now I rotate, and you see how all the gears are spinning around. Because basically all we've done is done a math formula to say that this rotation here, this rotation here is going to be used for all of these. Okay? Now I don't want this thing to accidentally rotate this way because that'll kind of screw things up. Or this way, that'll screw things up. So my X and Y here, I'm going to right click and I'm going to lock them. So now no one can accidentally grab this and rotate in these two directions. They can only rotate this that way. All right, so that looks pretty good. Okay, now this thing over here, is going to rotate. When this thing rotates this, what happened here? Reset those back to 0. If yours are like that or mine just got accidentally rotated. When this thing rotates here, it's not really connected to anything, you can't see it, but these things are going to spin. Okay, so there's something in this that's driving this thing to spin as this is spinning. Okay, and I believe I was having it do that maybe. No, that stays there. That stays there. Yep, that's fine. Okay, so I don't need this thing to rotate. I just want this coil to rotate. So I'm just going to take this, shift click that, and hit P for parent. So now when this thing rotates, you can see how that coil is also rotating. Okay, so that's just parenting. That's all that is. And if I decided later on that the director wanted these things to rotate with it, then I just grab those, shift click that, hit P to parent it, and now everything rotates. And I think I do like it actually better with those rotating, so I'm going to leave those rotations on. Okay, we're going to get to this guy in a second. That's going to be a bit trickier. Okay, so then we have this little piece here that needs to slide and move down. Okay, so this needs to move with it. So I'm going to do a set driven on this, just because it's easier to do a set driven. Animate, set driven key, set. My driver is going to be that big gear. My driven is going to be this little peg that's sitting right here. So driver, big gear. Driven is a slide latch. The driver on here is going to be the rotate Z. Rotate Z. You'll see that the other two are blocked out because you can't have them adjusted. And then my slide door latch, its attribute is going to be the X direction. So translate X. So this is at 0. This is at its home position. We key it. And then what I'm going to do is rotate this and keep an eye. This thing should move down. So I'm just going to watch these two gaps here as I rotate this and see how long it takes for that to get all the way down. All right, so it's about there that it's all the way down there. So I'm at negative 2100. So then I'm just going to take this and move it like that, like that, and then I'm going to key it. And so now if I grab this and I reset this to 0, that should jump back. And when I click on this and animate it, oops. Okay, you can see that it's going, but it's obviously not going at the right speed. So I'm going to grab this, go to my graph editor, and just specify this is linear. That's why it's not working, because it thinks it's flat, so it's trying to transition it, and then it gets kind of wonky. So now, if you look at that, that looks beautiful. It looks like those coils are actually pushing that thing down. So I reset this to 0, and now it's just a matter of taking this, shift-click that, and parent it. Okay, so now I take this, and it's pushing those latches down. Beautiful. And then if I were to open my environment, and I clicked on this door, there it is, shift-click that little peg thing, and parent that, I took it off that layer, but that's fine. Oops. And then I did this. You see that now that's opening the door. Okay. Now it's going to actually stop here. I don't want this thing to go any further than negative 2100. And I could even turn my environment back on just to see. There is as far as it wants to go. Okay. Well, that's as far as the door is going to open up. I'm going to have to reset this for a second. All right, that'll be good enough. Okay. All right, good. Where am I at? Environment. Okay, so that's good. Okay, now like I said, I don't want this to go any further than about here. Maybe a little bit further. Maybe even, let's say, that's too far. Negative 2200. Okay, negative 2200. This peg should be a little bit further over. So if I grab this, go to my graph editor, you'll see that I can adjust these settings here. Okay, now we're not dealing with time, we're dealing with values. So at negative 20, let's say 2200. Yes, negative 2200. At negative 2200 here, that little peg can be moved over a touch more. Okay, so I'm putting my peg at negative 8.4. There we go. So negative 2200, negative 8.4, and that moves that animation down a little bit. So that gives me a little bit more room that's on there. Okay, so I don't want this to go any lower than negative 2200. So I'm going to go to my attribute editor, and I can specify a limit here if I want to. So if I go to limit information, I can say my minimum rotate Z is 2200. So I check that on, I click this to make sure 2200 is in both. And now I can't go below 2200. See how it just stops. And the same thing on this side. Oops, just go back to 0. I don't want to go anything further than 0 this way. Okay, so I can specify in my rotate Z a limit of 0 for the maximum. So now this thing is kind of locked into just being able to do that animation. But once we're done, no one will really touch this. Okay, this is just for us for right now, so we don't accidentally break it. Okay, so now we need to set up this gear thing right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a bit of a more advanced setup, and it works best if we're in like a frontish view to see this kind of stuff. All right, so I'm going to go to wireframe also. I'm going to go to my skeleton tools, I'm going to go to my joint tool, and I'm going to hold down V and click right at the center of this point. So V snaps it right to that point. I'm going to come over here and click right about there. Okay, right where this thing and this thing kind of meet, where the center of that is. Hit enter. And now if I go to my perspective view and I look at this, I should see that this is pretty straight. Okay, I can nudge this in a little bit more if I need to, but it should be pretty good. Okay, this part here coming out isn't really going to matter so much, but I like to have it in so I know what it's associated with. Okay, so now this here is going to control this joint. So what I want to do is I'm going to take this piece of geometry, if I can select it, and I'm going to shift click the joint and hit P for parent. Then I'm going to take this joint, shift click our gear, and parent that. So now if I grab this and rotate it, see how that joint is going to move with it. But what I need to do is keep this thing kind of locked in here. So I'm going to go and create, under create UVs, not create UVs, wrong class, wrong lecture, under skeleton, IK handle tool. So I'm going to create a handle from here to there to kind of lock this thing in place. So I'm going to marquee that, and it creates this little handle. Now if I grab this and rotate it, you can see how it's still moving with it. Okay, so what I have to do is grab this locator, and I'm going to parent it to this thing here, this little blue or whatever latch that's inside here. I'm just going to hit P to parent it to that. And so now when I move this around, you can see how that's stuck right inside there. So now it looks like it's driving this thing and moving it a bit. Okay. So now the next part of this is that I want to control this stuff kind of coming out and going in, coming out and going in. I have a little bit of an expansion pack thing here that can be animated just by animating the animation of the scale of this. Okay, so the first thing I need to do is just kind of, I'm going to take this thing and just for, a few minutes, put it on a new layer and just hide it. Okay, just going to make it easier if I just hide this new thing so I can see what the mechanics are doing inside. All right, so first things, this thing that is here needs to be parented to that. Okay, so I just parent it to that shaft. This is part of it, so that thing would move with it like that. Okay, that's no big deal. And then this is not going to be parented to that. This thing is going to be parented to this. Okay, so if I grab this thing and I move this out like that, you'll see how that locator and everything are going to go with it. Okay. So I also want to use this as a way to animate this thing coming out and this thing coming back in. Okay, just to see if I go up and down, see how it's moving the locator. That'll also help with this animation as this thing comes down, that this thing will come out and kind of line up with that better. Okay. So we have that thing here. That's good. I'm going to take this and put the pivot at the back. So I'm going to hold down D. Maya's thinking of crashing. Let me save as. Close one. I'm going to hold down D and just drag this red until I get to the very back of this plate. I don't need to want it behind it, because then as I scale, it's going to go like moving the bottom of that, and it shouldn't. I'm going to put it right at the base. There we go. Maybe a little bit forward, even more. There we go. That looks pretty good. Okay. So then I have to decide also how far these things are going to go. So for a minute, I'm going to just turn on my layer 1. And we're just going to set up this thing. Okay, and I don't want to actually see my layer 1 like this. I'm going to hit T to template it so I can see it in wireframe or in ghosted mode. So I'm going to click this and just do a quick set driven on this thing coming out and this thing scaling up like that. Okay, and this is just, we're doing things in pieces, and I'm going to connect them all later on. So let's go to set driven. All right, and then let's go to our driver is this thing. Our driven is that thing. And our driven, we're doing the scale Y. Yes. And our driver, we're doing translate X. Okay, so right now they're in a good spot. I key it. I'm going to pull this up further than I need to go, like that far. It's probably never going to come out that far, but just in case. And then I'm going to scale this up further than it needs to come. And then key it. Click this. Pull it back. Okay, and you see we get that linear thing needs to be adjusted, so we go to the graph editor for that. View our graph, and then just make this linear. There we go. So now this thing is compressing. Now obviously we don't want to go back down below this. We don't need to worry about it too much. Okay, so I'm just gonna pull that in to about there. Okay, good. All right, so now what we need to do is connect this movement with that movement. So what I'm going to do is, if I look at this, this is basically like a 360-degree rotation. This thing should be back in here. When this is all the way here at about 180, like, oops, negative 180, there we go. Then this is going to be at its full distance, and then when it's back to 360, or negative 360, it's back inside there, okay? So I'm going to do another set driven on this. My driver is going to be this thing. My driven is going to be that thing. Okay, driver, gear 3, driven, piston cap. So then, this is going to be rotate Z here. This is going to be translate X there, because that's where we're moving, translate X. Okay, gear 3, piston cap, good. I'm going to set a key just as they are. My gear is at 0. My piston cap is back to its home. Sometimes these get deselected. Key it. There we go. And then I'm going to go to my gear 3, set this rotation to negative 360, and then set a key. Go to my gear 3, set this to negative 180. Pull this thing out until it's lined up with that. I guess we do go out that far, so I'll have to fix this animation on here. And probably also extend this a little bit. Okay, so that's good there. I'll hit key. And so now, if I go through and just rotate this, see it pulls out and pushes back in. And then the same thing, this thing has keys. I'm going to go in the graph editor and make it linear. Now we're also going to do something else that we need to do while we're in here. And the thing we're going to do is I have this graph, and all I want to do is take this and repeat it over and over and over again. So if I go to my curves, or I'll go to view first and go to infinity, what happens is it goes here, here, and here, and then just stops. So I'm going to grab this, go to curves, post infinity, and say cycle. And now I'm going to have this thing repeat over and over and over again. So now we'll take this, and we'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, then we'll fix it. Okay, it doesn't work because this thing is in the negative rotation. So I have to go grab this and say curves, pre-infinity, cycle. And now as we rotate this, okay, now we are having this thing come off a little bit just because of how this thing is moving. Okay, so I'm going to grab this, go to my graph editor, and I guess we are going to try doing a little flattening here and just see what happens. The worst that happens is it doesn't work and you just fix it. Oopsie doozy. Like that. And I'm just going to take these guys in a little bit. I think they're just too sharp. So I'm going to grab them, go to curves, go to weighted tangents, go to key tangents, go to tangents, and free the tangent weights. I'm just going to bring these in. We'll see what bringing it in does. As a student, many people are afraid just to try things out and see what happens. Well, don't be afraid. Yeah, that's not working out as good as I thought. Alright, no big deal. Here's how you delete a set-driven key. You just grab the stuff and you delete it. Okay, so now that no longer has set-driven key on it, so now we're back to, basically we're back to square whatever this was to get that set up. Okay, so now we're going to do something different. This is how rigging goes. You try something and you see if it works, and if it doesn't work, then guess what? Try something else. So I'm going to take this, whoa, that's wrong. I'm going to go to my move tool, and this is basically all I want to do is just move this out and move it back. That's all we want to do. So I'm going to click on this guy, shift click this guy, and I'm going to go to animation menu, go to constrain, And I'm going to do a point constraint. We'll give this a go. I'm going to say maintain offset and hit add. Okay, we'll see if it blows up. So now as I do this, you see that it's not really working the way that I want it to work. Okay, I want just one direction for this thing to move, but it's moving in all directions. So that's no big deal. I'm going to hit undo. And I'm going to specify that I just want to constrain the x direction. This one's x direction and this one's x direction are the same. So I click on the piece, shift click that again, constrain point, just the x direction. And now we should have magic. And we do. It works beautifully. And it's going to work for a very long time. Okay, so now we just have to fix this guy. So I'm going to take this thing and rotate it to -180. Grab this guy here, go to the graph editor. And then this is, let's see how far this guy came out. 15 is where that's at. So this is going to be at 15 point whatever. So what I'm going to do is use this curves post infinity and just say linear. Oops, curves pre-infinity is what I meant to say. Linear. Curves pre-infinity linear. Oh, it's set to flat, so I'm just going to linearize it. Come on. Linear. Break the tangent, and then just move this up. There we go. That should have just worked, but it didn't. So I had to click on it and break the tangent, and then line this up so I have a perfectly straight line. Okay, so now this whole thing is working. This works beautifully. Okay. Gorgeous. All right. So now for the last little bits of pieces that we have to do, we just have to animate those lights coming down and then animate the stuff working. Just animate this thing rotating. No big deal. So I'm going to grab my M. Oops, I guess we have to create the lights going down first. The way that we're going to do the lights animating down is we have inside here, there's a curve inside each one of these. Okay, there's the curves. There's one more inside this thing. So what we're going to do is we're going to just create a little sphere. I'm going to hold down C and middle click and drag along that curve and then shrink it down. Okay, what we're going to do is just put basically like this is going to be a glow that could go down this pipe. You wouldn't really see it unless you were doing a wireframe of this rendering. So I'm going to take the sphere and just call this a glow sphere. I'm going to duplicate it and scoot it over. Duplicate it and scoot it over. There we go. So now I'm going to grab the sphere, shift click on this curve that's in here, and go to animate motion paths attached to motion path. And I'm going to set this to go time slider should be fine. I have it set to 400. That's not a big deal. We're going to break that anyway. So I'm just going to hit attach. I'm going to go to the next one, shift click the curve, hit G to redo that. Grab the next one, shift click the curve, hit G to redo that. Okay, so now if I were just to hit play down here or click and drag, these things are just going to zip down this thing and go into their box. Okay. So now we can set that up. So now we're going to go to animate, set driven key set. That's our driver, like as always. And we're going to do door opening. And our driven is going to be three things. It's going to be these guys, but not these guys specifically. It's going to be their motion path. That's what we're going to use to control it. Okay, so I'm going to actually go to the U value for the motion path, right click, and say break connection. Click on this one, right click, break connection. Click on this one, motion path, right click, break connection. Okay, so I'm going to load the motion path for each of these. Now I can't just click on these and load it because it just won't load. There's the sphere. So if I go into the hypershade, I click on each one of these spheres and then graph it out, you'll see inside here that there's a motion path that I could then shift click to grab on. Okay, so I'm going to grab the motion paths for all three of those. And I'm also going to grab this gear, and I'm going to load that as my driven. So I have motion path 1, 2, 3, and gear 3. So I'm going to grab these three first, because this one doesn't have the same value, so I can't even do anything with that yet. Okay, so right now everything is good. Everything is where it should be at the start of this. This master controller is at 0 for door opening. Door opening's clicked. These guys are clicked. Their U value is clicked. I key it. Nothing exploded. I go to my door opening. I'm going to set this to 10. I'm going to go to my motion paths. Set their U values to 1. And they should have gotten down there, and they did. There they are. I'm going to key those. And so now, just so you can see what that did, is it just animated those things zipping up. So there they are, zipping back up and zipping down. Okay, so I'm going to set this to 30. Oops, not 30. I'm going to set this back to 10. There we go. I'm going to click on my gear. I'm going to click on its rotate and set a key. The master controller is at 10. The gear's rotation is at 0. I set a key. And now I'm going to go back to the master controller and set it to 30. Grab the gear, rotate it to negative 2200. Set a key. And there we go. Okay. So now if I click on the M, click on the door opening, I reset it to 0. Someone comes in, they push the buttons, doot, 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 doot. The balls shoot down, go into here, the door starts chugging, 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 and then opening. Gorgeous. And if we really needed to, just for fun later on, and we really want that door to open up all the way, which we may. Okay, see it doesn't open all the way. We can animate that further, just kind of pushing it along a little bit further, pushing this thing along a little bit further if we needed to. Okay, we can animate this kind of scooting past even this at the end. Okay, which will probably do that. But for now, this is good. So that comes in. All right, so all we've done in this one is we've animated the digits, pressing. It's hard to see, but they're doing it. There we go. And then we've animated these door opening, balls shooting down. Now it's kind of boring to have all three of the balls go at the same exact speed. So this is where we can come into this and start to play with these values. So I can go to the graph editor, and they all have the same graph. They all have 0 to 1. That's where they're animated. But I can take these and maybe just pull one of these. Let me grab glow sphere 1, grab this, and pull it up a little bit. So I just moved it forward a little bit in the bottom, forward a little bit here, make it linear. Grab glow sphere 2, make it linear. Grab glow sphere, well, that was 1. Grab glow sphere 2 now, and leave that one alone. Okay. So now what I've done here is I've just taken this and just given this a little bit of randomness. That one is super slow. That's number 2. So I may have gone a little bit too much on the other 2. So let me go to the graph editor. I'll just pull this one back to 1. And that up to 9. we go. So now they kind of shoot down. Boop, boop, boop. And then the door starts moving. All right, so wonderful, beautiful, gorgeous. Once you have this set up, the interior lights you should be able to do, the upper lights you should be able to do. It's just a matter of grabbing these things, just like all the other set-driven stuff, and finding where those controlling objects are. Here are these controlling objects right here. Okay, interior media light surface. And on the top of this is a little plane. Gold floor lights. Click the additional color there. And here are these, and these are the values that you should kind of use. Add a little bit to reflection. Okay, the reflection should have something in there, but these other two should be good. All right, so that should be good.